Ja, nästa person på talarlistan är Ignaciuk. I think that was right. I tried to pronounce it and ask you in advance if I could do it correctly. So she will talk about why business as usual is not an option any longer. And you from the OECD and from a particular division that's called?
Agriculture and Trade Directorate, Environment Division.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you. So, hey. And I think that's about my level of Swedish. So I'll continue further in English. First of all, let me express I'm very, very pleased to be here with you. Thank you very much to the organizer for inviting me here. I'm going today to talk to you about the highlights of Environmental Outlook that was done at the OECD in collaboration with the Netherlands Environmental Assessment Agency. And two most important messages that we have is that we need to not only focus on our current business as usual thing and fiscal. I mean, we have obviously, very important day-to-day business. Our fiscal policies are not always in a good position. Unemployment rates are high, so this obviously is a big concern. But we cannot not afford to think about the future and what are the consequences of our growth that's going to be in a couple of years from now on. So actions need to be taken now, and it makes not only sense in environmental, not only environmental sense, but also economic sense. If we are going to delay our action, we are going to pay the consequences of this. So let me, how does this work? Yes. The Outlook presents the trends, different trends, socioeconomic trends for the next 4 decades. And in principle, the business as usual that I'm going to present you, as the title already suggests, it's not really an option. I will show you that the expectation under current policies are that our economy is going to quadruple, and this obviously will have large consequences on demands of energy, food, land, natural resources, and so on and so forth. Yeah, the point is it's not an acceptable future. That's something I want you to remember. And it calls for an urgent actions and let me go to the methodology that we used. I don't want you to really focus very much and read, by yourself this graph. It's at this point too complicated, so just bear with me. The way the Outlook was performed, I mean, we used 2 different models. One with economic models, the other one that was giving us the information about natural resources. And in principle, we have certain sets of drivers, economic drivers that steer the growth. And this has consequences for the energy use and land use. And obviously, there are other interrelation between those. And those increase the pressure of natural environment. Like here we have it's increased the pressure on land, it's increased the pressure on deforestation, emissions, and those, if not properly steered, cause different environmental problems. And the Outlook focused on 4 themes. One was health and environment, and then climate, water stress, and water and biodiversity. For the purpose of this presentation today, since we are going to focus mainly on agriculture, I'm going to focus on climate, water, and biodiversity, since those are more directly related to agriculture. Though, just keep in mind, we also did a lot of studies on health issues. So the quadrupling of the economy will have an impact on climate. just a short graph in what's going to happen with emissions. As you could see, the emissions in 2050 are going to increase by about 50%. And that is mainly caused by the increased demand for energy. And as expected, well, under this baseline, it's expecting that around 85% of demand for energy comes from the fossil fuels. If you could see from the down, I think the light blue, it's the energy and emission from the OECD countries. As you see, it increased just slightly. The emissions that come from the BRIC countries and other developing countries are going to go on and kind of you could see a strong increase in emissions. And this obviously will have consequences on the temperature. Here you see a map with temperature increase by 2100. You could see that this is not really the world that we want to head in. That average temperature increase is, in the business as usual, is expected to be between 3 and 6 centigrade, as it will be 3 to 6 centigrades higher than in pre-industrial time. And this is far above the internationally agreed goal of 2 degree increase. As another thing is that this will have obviously a large consequences for agriculture, and as some countries might slightly benefit, the other are going to pay the price, since within such a short time period it's very hard to get enough adaptation measure to keep up with current production structures. Probably many of you have seen this photo. This is the more than $4 million photo recently sold. Well, it's the Rhine. And but I'm not here to publicize the photos, but I just took this as a chance to introduce you to the second topic that we were dealing with. It's water. So first, let me tell you a bit about the water quantity. The demand for water is going to increase by 2050. It's projected to increase by 2050. And generally, the demand for water increases rapidly in the manufacturing sector. It's about 400% higher demand than of today. And also electricity and other sectors. And you see that in the dark blue color, that's the demand for water that will come for agriculture. It's not that the demand for water will decrease in agriculture, but it's simply agriculture is often seen in one of the last sector that will receive the water. So the water might be first allocated to the sectors of kind of high priority, like domestic water. So you could see that agriculture might come under a large pressure from not having enough water. And now about the quantity of water. Well, except of OECD countries, which is the dark blue, the quality of water in other countries is expected to deteriorate under the scenario. So this is not really a very good message, because it's going to lead to massive eutrophication and also other water pollutions that might have severe consequences for also agriculture, but for the health of human, but also the health of ecosystems. And focusing a little bit more on agriculture, here you could see the nitrogen balance from agriculture from 1970 to 2050. And if you could clearly see that within the OECD countries, agriculture is the most polluting sector in terms of nitrogen. It's not only fertilizers, but it's also here the livestock. The averages, the average of nitrogen surpluses are pretty high, though within the next 4 decades, the OECD countries are the only group of countries that are having more stringent policies that are at least targeting to decrease those surpluses. Though on a very not positive note, the nitrogen surpluses from other countries, BRICS and developing countries, are going to increase, causing further environmental degradation. This growth without any stringent environmental policies will also have consequences on the biodiversity and hence also on agriculture, since agriculture rely heavily on the ecosystem services that is provided by the ecosystems and the natural life by the beings. So here you can see what is expected with the biodiversity within the next 4 decades in the baseline. That's on this graph you see mean species abundance index. This index tells you something about how different is the situation from the total natural system. So 100% of this index means that the nature is kind of healthy and in nature in its natural state. If you see the decrease of the index, it means how far we are from kind of a natural state of the environment. And you see that biodiversity is going to deteriorate further in all of the countries. And what is interesting to see is that, well, that's the same index. You see that the gray area is the percentage of the the mean species abundance index. So how much of intact biodiversity we still have, and then the colorful bars tells you what are the drivers that are decreasing the biodiversity index. And if you see that, obviously, production of food crops also has its impact. Pasture forestry, it means the productive forest, not the natural forest. But the biggest driver that is expected to play a role in the biodiversity decline is a climate change by 2050. So that's another interesting conclusions from there. And now what to do to keep up the good and to remove the bad and the ugly. So OECD came up with certain set of policies or advices that we shall take if we want to make more greener policy and more environmental friendly policies. And one of the first is make pollution more costly than greener alternatives. And that's, I hope that this message will also reach Doha. If anyone has a possibility to pass this message to the negotiators, please do. That's the first one. Another one is value and price the natural assets of ecosystems and ecosystem services. For instance, for water pricing or pricing of the paying for the ecosystem services or park entrances and so forth. So just give the price to the service and good price. Another one is to remove environmentally harmful subsidies. We at the OECD we do a lot of work now in this respect. We have some studies about subsidies on water and their effect, and also subsidies on fossil fuels and different sort of support measures, not only subsidies, but wider support measures. Within the Outlook, we did a study on this is as an example, on fossil fuel subsidy reform, and you see that well, it's beneficial for the countries in total to have the program on removal of subsidies. Obviously, you have to be very careful and very carefully think through how you're going to remove those subsidies, because you don't want to remove the subsidies for the poor and don't give anything back that they can rely on. But just keeping to the environmental effects, such a multilateral subsidy removal will already lead to 6% of less CO2 emissions. So see, it will have large consequences on the environment. Another set, you have to think, well, governments should think about the effective regulations and standards, for instance, for promoting energy efficiency. I think in Sweden you are one of the leading countries in promoting such policies. Another one you shall think about encouraging green innovation, also on the governmental level, but also including the private sector. That I think it's also very important that they are also on board. Obviously, facilitating consumer choices via different sort of labeling or information on the demand side that can be contributing to the solutions. Maximize synergy and co-benefits. For instance, tackle the local air pollutions can also cut some of the greenhouse gas emissions and have a reduction of the some of the health problems. So it's very good to combine certain sets of policies and let's say to achieve two goals by one measure. Another thing is if you target the climate, it also helps biodiversity, as we could also see on one of the message what I've shown you. And it's important to integrate the environmental objective in economic and sectoral policies. So once the policy on energies are being provided, it's also very important that there is also an environmental focus to those, because generally they are more effective than just making environmental policies on the side. So it's very good to streamline the environmental and also economic policies together. So thank you very much for your attention. I don't know whether we have now time for the questions, but I give you the...
Thank you.
So